want to talk about Steve Bannon real quick. All right, not the myth, not the character that he plays on his show, but the actual role that he's playing in dismantling American institutions, starting with the education department. Because this movement didn't begin with the parents. It didn't begin with the teachers, and it did not begin with our communities. It began with Bannon, the Heritage Foundation, and a coordinated plan to tear down federal guardrails so that their movement can run unchecked. None of this solves a single real-world problem that teachers have been pleading with the country to address. Not a single one. But it does serve a political machine that Steve Bannon has built. So the right wants you to believe that there's a grassroots uprising that demands the elimination of the Department of Education. That's the sales pitch. The reality is that this groundswell was engineered. On Bannon's War Room, week after week, we see the same coordinated message you now see repeated by Breitbart, Fox, fringe influencers, and politicians who orbit the movement. The Department of Education is useless. It's destructive. Shut it down. End federal oversight. These are not original ideas. They're straight out of Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, AEI, and the think tank network that has been trying to privatize public education for decades. Bannon's just the megaphone. He sells the idea. He writes the blueprint, and the politicians carry it out. Before the Department of Education, Black students were denied equal education. Students with disabilities were excluded entirely, and girls were prevented from taking certain classes or advancing in certain fields. Local districts used discriminatory funding models, college access was limited to wealthy families, federal civil rights protections in schools were basically non-existent. The Department of Education didn't fix everything. It wasn't perfect. But it set a national standard of fairness, access, and accountability that nobody else had the power to enforce. So when you remove it, you go back to the chaos that we came from. People who benefit from that chaos are not students. It's not teachers, it's not families. They're the political actors and corporate interests who have been trying to privatize education for profit. They want free tax money. Teachers have never asked to eliminate the federal agency that protects civil rights and helps funding schools. What they have said is that they need smaller class sizes. They need updated textbooks. They need mental health support for students, less standardized testing, working HVAC systems. They need to stop paying millions to curriculum monopolies. They need higher salaries so they don't have to have 3 jobs. Eliminating the Department of Education fixes none of that. It is not meant to fix it. It is meant to defund, weaken, and fragment the public system so that private companies, the ones that the far right is aligned with, can swoop in and take over. That is not reform. That is a hostile takeover. The professions that they are targeting, teaching, counseling, school psychology, are overwhelmingly staffed by women, and nearly all of those professions are mandatory reporters. If they see signs of child abuse, they are legally required to report it. Those guardrails protect the powerless. So ask yourself, why are Bannon's network and Project 2025 trying to devalue, deregulate, dismantle, and decentralize these professions? Why are they placing people with histories of minimizing or mishandling abuse into positions of educational authority? Why remove the people most obligated to speak up when something is wrong? Because collapsing mandatory reporting makes it easier for abuse to go unnoticed, unchallenged, and unreported. Moral panic is the cover. Power consolidation is the goal. Every authoritarian movement attacks teachers, the educated class, and the institutions that protect children, the structures that distribute knowledge. They centralize power while decentralizing accountability. They tell the public that the system is corrupt so that they, the ones seeking absolute power, can dismantle the only institutions strong enough to stop them. This is not about improving schools. This is not about fixing funding. It is not about parents' rights. This is about control. Information control, narrative control, cultural control, power without oversight. Steve Bannon is not fighting for public education. He is fighting to eliminate it as a public good and replace it with a political pipeline. The movement he built is using parents' frustration, teacher burnout, and the chaos in schools as a smokescreen to push an agenda they wrote years ago. So when you hear eliminate the Department of Education, shut it down, give the power back to the states, understand what the translation is. Remove the guardrails, make the system easier to exploit, and silence people trained to protect children. Nobody asked for this. Nobody voted for this solution, and teachers don't want it. The parents are not demanding this. This did not start at the bottom. This started at the top, with Bannon, with the Heritage Foundation, with a plan, with a political movement that knows it cannot achieve absolute power while the public education system stands in its way. Look out for yourselves. Look out for a neighbor. Look out for a stranger. Y'all keep doing good.